Imagine waking up tomorrow, getting into your car, driving to the nearest filling station, and discovering that filling your tank now costs almost twice as much as it did a year ago. You stand there staring at the pump, wondering the same question millions of Nigerians ask every single day. Why is fuel so expensive? Is it because Nigeria is running out of oil? Is someone secretly increasing the price just to make more money? Or is there something much bigger happening behind the scenes? The truth is, fuel prices are influenced by a combination of economics, politics, global events, and decisions made both inside and outside Nigeria. Once you understand how it all works, you'll never look at fuel prices the same way again. And here's the surprising part. Even if you don't own a car, expensive fuel is still costing you money every single day. Let's break it down. First, we need to understand something that many people overlook. Fuel isn't just for cars. Think about everything you buy in a typical week. Rice, bread, tomatoes, bottled water, clothes, electronics, medicine, furniture, and even your online shopping deliveries. How do these products get from factories to warehouses and then to markets and supermarkets? Trucks. What powers those trucks? Fuel. Now, think about public transportation. Buses, taxis, tricycles, motorcycles, and delivery vans all rely on petrol or diesel. Many businesses in Nigeria also rely heavily on generators because electricity isn't always reliable. Those generators consume fuel every single day. Factories need fuel. Construction companies need fuel. Farmers need fuel for tractors and irrigation equipment. Fishing boats need fuel. Even hospitals and schools often depend on generators powered by fuel. In other words, fuel sits at the heart of almost every part of the economy. When fuel prices rise, transportation becomes more expensive. When transportation becomes more expensive, businesses spend more money moving goods. When businesses spend more money, they increase the prices of their products. That's why a fuel price increase doesn't just affect drivers. It affects food prices. It affects transport fares. It affects electricity costs for businesses. It affects online deliveries. It even affects the price of your favorite meal. Fuel is like the first domino in a long chain. Once it falls, almost everything else follows. Now here's something that confuses many people. Nigeria is one of Africa's biggest oil producers. So why isn't fuel cheap? It sounds like a fair question. After all, if you produce something, shouldn't you have plenty of it at a lower price? Unfortunately, that's not how the global oil market works. Crude oil is traded internationally. Countries all over the world buy and sell oil every single day. The price is determined by global supply and global demand. Imagine millions of buyers competing for the same product. If demand increases while supply stays the same, prices go up. If supply falls because of wars, political instability, or production cuts, prices also rise. Major oil-producing countries sometimes deliberately reduce production to keep prices high. Conflicts in oil-producing regions can disrupt supply. Natural disasters can affect production. Economic recovery after recessions can increase global demand. Nigeria doesn't get to decide the international price of crude oil. Instead, Nigeria participates in the same global market as every other country. So even though Nigeria produces crude oil, global events still influence how much that oil is worth. But that's only part of the story. Now let's talk about one of the biggest reasons fuel has become so expensive in Nigeria, the naira. Oil is traded almost entirely in US dollars, not naira. That means whenever Nigeria imports refined fuel or pays for services related to fuel, payment is usually made in dollars. Now imagine that $1 equals 800 naira. Then imagine that the exchange rate changes and $1 now equals 1,600 naira. Has the fuel itself changed? No. Has the amount of fuel changed? No. But Nigerians now need twice as many naira to buy the same amount of dollars needed to purchase that fuel. This is why exchange rates matter so much. When the naira loses value against the dollar, imported goods become more expensive. Fuel is one of those imported goods. Even if global oil prices stay exactly the same, Nigerians may still pay significantly more simply because the currency has weakened. That's why headlines about the exchange rate often have a direct impact on fuel prices. Now here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Nigeria is rich in crude oil, but for many years, Nigeria imported a large percentage of its refined fuel. Think about that for a second. Imagine owning a cocoa farm. Instead of making chocolate yourself, you ship the cocoa beans overseas. Another country turns those beans into chocolate. Then you buy the finished chocolate back and pay extra for shipping, processing, insurance, transportation, and profit. That's essentially what happened with crude oil. Nigeria exported crude oil. Other countries refined it into petrol and diesel. Then Nigeria imported the finished products. Every extra step increased the final price consumers had to pay. Shipping costs, insurance costs, port charges, storage costs, exchange rate costs, transportation costs, company profits. Each one added another layer of expense before fuel finally reached filling stations. Although local refining capacity has been improving in recent years, changes like these take time before consumers fully feel the benefits. Now let's talk about one of the most controversial topics in Nigeria's economy: fuel subsidies. For many years, the Nigerian government helped keep fuel prices artificially low. Here's how it worked. Suppose the actual market price of fuel should have been 900 naira per liter. Instead of allowing consumers to pay the full amount, the government paid part of the cost. Maybe consumers paid 400 naira. The government covered the remaining 500 naira. At first glance, this seems like a fantastic idea. People pay less, transportation stays affordable, businesses spend less. Everyone is happy. But there's a catch. The government still has to find that money somewhere. It might come from taxes, it might come from borrowing money, it might come from cutting spending in healthcare, education, or infrastructure. Over time, fuel subsidies became extremely expensive. The government spent enormous amounts of money trying to keep prices low. Eventually, the decision was made to remove much of the subsidy. Once that happened, prices quickly adjusted to reflect the actual cost of fuel. For many Nigerians, the increase felt sudden and painful. But from an economic perspective, prices moved closer to what the market considered their true value. That decision continues to generate debate today. Some argue subsidy removal was necessary for the country's long-term financial health. Others believe it placed too much pressure on ordinary citizens already struggling with rising living costs. Regardless of which side you agree with, there's no denying that subsidy removal played a major role in today's fuel prices. So the next question becomes obvious. Will fuel ever become cheap again? The answer is yes, but it won't happen because of just one single change. Several things would need to improve at the same time. Global oil prices could fall if supply increases or demand slows down. The naira could become stronger against the US dollar. Nigeria could continue expanding local refining capacity. Transportation and distribution systems could become more efficient. Competition among suppliers could help reduce costs. Government policies could improve market stability. None of these solutions happen overnight. Economies are incredibly complex systems with thousands of moving parts. That's why fuel prices often move up and down over time instead of staying fixed. So the next time you hear that fuel prices have increased, remember that it's rarely because of one simple reason. It's usually the result of global markets, currency exchange rates, refining capacity, transportation costs, government policies, and economic decisions all working together. Fuel isn't just another product sitting on a shelf. It's one of the most important resources in any economy. Its price influences transportation, food, manufacturing, business costs, and ultimately the cost of living for millions of people. Understanding why fuel is expensive won't immediately reduce the price you pay at the pump, but it will help you understand the bigger picture behind the numbers you see every day. And when you understand how money, business, and the economy really work, you're better prepared to make smarter financial decisions in your own life. If you enjoyed this explanation and want more simple breakdowns of money, business, and the forces shaping Nigeria, the UK, and the global economy, make sure you subscribe, because every week we'll explain complex topics in a way that's easy to understand. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.